Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying!
Yes, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cannon Podcast. I am here with my fellow nerd, my fellow technical illiterate, Mr. Wohan Jivan. How are you, good sir?
I'm good, man. Good. It's been a great week for Arsenal and just so much to look forward to as well with what potentially could happen after what we've been going through this entire season, You know
what? I actually want to pull on that thread a little bit really quickly because we just spent over an hour watching PSG matches, both against Villa as well as our old game against PSG a little bit earlier on in the season. Some very interesting lessons that we'll definitely be able to relay back to you. But if you guys did want to check out game footage specifically in which we looked at tactical plays and ways to hurt PSG, definitely follow the link below and look, and you can access the Patreon. Of course, you can also do a 7-day free trial, which we would love if you would like to check out some of our other initiatives. But to go right into it, and none of the promo stuff, how are you feeling as far as an Arsenal fan being invested again? Because I do feel that this is something that at least every fan, whether you're on the positive or the negative end of the spectrum, can agree with. We have found something to be excited again about. And it was weird, wasn't it? Because there was a period of apathy for sure, I think pre-Madrid. But now post-Madrid, there is a level of belief in this team, in pundits. There is a spark again looking at this season to see if we can do something special that we've not been able to do in our history. Like where do you stand about being excited again for the season after going from a period of maybe apathy pre-Madrid?
It's like we needed it, haven't we, for sure? Because it's been a really painful season with a lot of circumstances, a lot of turbulence, a lot of different reasons. And I think, if there's something that all Arsenal fans unequivocally agree on, is the fact that there is real excitement going into the end of this season and something really special could happen. I think there's even more excitement with the fact that this is something within our great history that we've never been able to do before. Win a Champions League. And I think, obviously, you don't want to get too carried away, but mate, we're 3 games away potentially of being able to do this. And I think that excitement is something that you can kind of feel both through social media. There's a lot more positivity as opposed to apathy, and just that general excitement that I think we've all needed, especially with what has happened in the other cups, what's obviously happening with Liverpool going to wrap up the league probably by next week. So, I'm just excited, man. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And I think I'm even more excited because of what we've been able to watch with PSG and some of their weaknesses. What a transition. I think, firstly, I'll go to you. Where do you feel that this Arsenal team can get the most joy from PSG? Because there's a couple lessons. And so give me your major takeaway and maybe one aspect that you look at and say, Arsenal, if you're able to get yourself in these situations, we can find joy.
So, there's this kind of this debate about how much PSG have changed since we played them at the Emirates to our most recent example of PSG, in which everyone has tuned into at least a little bit of, is the Villa game. And for me, there isn't a massive difference. Obviously at the Emirates, there are certain changes in certain players who are playing now, the likes of Kvaratskhelia, the likes of Dembele, who didn't feature before. So there is that caveat. But I think the lessons that we can learn from the Emirates early this season and also Villa is a team in which, for me, Arsenal tactically are their kryptonite. PSG, I don't think, would want to play against this Arsenal team. And that's why I was very, very happy that we were able to get them instead of Aston Villa. Now, football is a funny game, isn't it? There's no guarantees. But I think what Arsenal do in terms of the press, which I want to focus so much on, now we can suffocate them, is where we can really hurt PSG. And this is a team, as we all saw against Aston Villa in that second leg, in the second half, losing their heads, the gaps opening, the back line, as we mentioned many times in the rewatch of the Villa and the Arsenal games, not going with the midfield when they're jumping, that space then opening up for you to carry. That is something we can hurt them a lot with. But also in terms of what they want to do on the ball, being a team who wants to orchestrate, wants to get their wingers in quickly 1v1, they're not going to be able to do that if we're able to get our press right, which I think if from an Arsenal, from a general perspective on Arsenal, I think everyone can surely agree how well this team is coached out of possession, whether it's defending deep or whether it's defending high in the press. And for me, the way that we're able to do that, starting zonal, starting more conservative before then increasing that intensity, which is what we saw earlier in the season at the Emirates, I don't think PSG will be able to handle that. And they could be forced into a game which they have to go long immediately. But who do they have going long when we have that advantage at the back already with a back four against their front three, our two centre-backs working against Dembele, the wingers being pinned by our full-backs? I don't think they've got that reference to really trouble us there. And I think that's where we can really disrupt their tempo, their rhythm, and we can really suffocate them. So, yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, mate, there's a couple of things for me, right? Like the first line of PSG pressure and the counter press, first things, their wingers are fairly lazy in terms of bending their runs. And they are man-to-man. But if you can beat that first line of pressure from a PSG standpoint, then the way that they support their press is actually quite lazy. And their back line, especially their center backs, are quite afraid and apprehensive to engage with you high. And they tend to want to drop, which forces their fullbacks to be a lot more conservative. And this leaves space on the outside quite a bit. And I think Arsenal, from a team bemoaned at times this season for primarily progressing through wide channels, this is the kryptonite that I feel that PSG struggle quite a bit with, because as a team, they're actually quite good about blocking central progression. But it's really their wide progression. And, if you can beat their first press, they open areas. And, the biggest thing that I'll probably ask you as a question of, just to kind of tie that off, because the press is something that we know is going to be very important. We knew how important it would be against Madrid. And this is how the narrative of how hard it was versus how hard people believed it could be was the biggest disconnect between the name Madrid, the name Kvaratskhelia, and PSG. I urge you guys to have a look at the rewatch, to look at the number of scenarios in which PSG don't support their players, even on a quick long switch, which is their best chance for me for catching this Arsenal side. The numbers that they're able to shift across in midfield between Neves, between Vitinha, between a Fabian Ruiz, is not a running midfield that they can shift well side to side. They also, their fullbacks won't support that long switch early enough because, again, they are afraid of their center backs defending wide areas in the case of a turnover. Yeah. So it leads to this kind of very much a 1v1 battle. And when you have a look at it, I think our fullbacks in wide areas 1v1 are some of the best in the world at that. Yeah. So I'll ask you, and I'll just frame this question, mate. No Thomas Partey. Martin Odegaard is going to be, and people talk about how PSG have changed quite a bit. I mean, you're going to get Martin Odegaard back, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Mikel Merino in this kind of form. For as much as PSG are different, Arsenal are equally fairly different, in my opinion, which isn't getting talked about. How do you replace the Thomas Partey hole? Especially understanding that I think Thomas Partey and Declan Rice, it's worth mentioning, again, if you have a look at some of the rewatches, were very important with the aggression they showed in our press to meeting PSG high. Both of them were doing a lot of work as far as putting PSG under pressure so that they couldn't progress centrally and were forced towards a long ball ultimately in their periods of possession. But how would you fix the Thomas Partey? Is it as simple as Ipswich minus the fullbacks for you?
For me, it is. It's a very interesting dilemma that we have here, because it's kind of like this was going to be such an easy lineup to go with had Thomas Partey not got that yellow card in the second leg. We would have gone exactly the same as it was, and we'd all be confident. But I think for me, when Mikel spoke about how he'd rather play, the second leg at home. But ironically, I think with Thomas Partey being suspended, I actually think it's better for us to play the home game first, because we have the opportunity to play Trossard up front, in which I think the game becomes a lot more favourable for him at home relative to away from home. I think away from home, you've got to go with Merino back up top as that release valve, going a little bit longer, anticipating that we have got a substantial lead, a healthy lead from the home game. We can play the exact same game as we did against Real Madrid. There's a lot of stylistic similarities there as well, in terms of we can force PSG to play the game that Real Madrid were forced to play in that second leg, in terms of going wide, crossing into the box. Then who do they have? At least Real Madrid had someone like a Jude Bellingham who can crash the box, and they've got that height. PSG don't have that capacity. So for me, the home game, again, I'd urge you to watch the rewatch. We actually had Trossard playing as that false nine in that game anyway, in which you're able to see what he was capable of doing, the spaces that he was able to get himself in when the front line were pressing, but then the back line aren't jumping and the midfield aren't able to cover the ground because there's not enough. There's just not enough bodies there to cover the number of bodies we have there, and that's the joy that we had. So I would go with Trossard as the false nine, and Mikel Merino playing on the left hand side. And then everything else speaks for itself, really. And Ipswich, for me, the lineup screamed, I'm preparing for PSG at home, outside the fullbacks. And I think that's what it will be.
1,000,000%. I think that's going to be the likely thing. I will say there's a lot of, I have some of my maybe the galaxy brain ability to see other areas of the pitch that I think we could exploit. But fundamentally, I look at PSG and I look at Ipswich and our game plan, and I think it'll be brilliant. The one thing I'll say is making sure to maximize our time when we're out wide and we break that first line of pressure to really press and to get our wingers inside more, because these center backs, they don't like engaging. And if we can get our wingers inside a lot more often, we're going to have a ton of joy. And I think lastly, mate, it just goes down to prediction. So we've talked all the tactics, and I, again, would urge everyone to go back to the rewatch to kind of see the spaces that we're talking about out wide that are available. But give me your crystal ball, Wohan, prediction. Online, where do you stand? We say how excited we are. How do you think this first leg's going to go? Yeah,
I really fancy us, mate. I actually think we'll get the same scoreline as what it was earlier in the season. I think it'll be a 2-0. And if you gave me a 2-0 now, I think going into the second leg with a two-goal lead, very confident. I think there's a lot of importance here to try and get the game dead and buried. Try as much as you can to get it finished, just as we did against Real Madrid, and finish it and just get the tie done. There's a little bit of arrogance there when you're going with that sort of prediction, but I just really fancy us. Funny enough, I didn't fancy us against Real Madrid. I think, again, it was that idea, the institution, the ideology of Real Madrid more. But when you actually break it down, again, it's a team that is quite favourable to us. And PSG, again, is another team that's very favourable for us as well. So, yeah, I'm going for a 2-0.
Yeah, mate, it's I'm not far from you. I'm going to just come out and say I think I've got a 3-1 Arsenal win. And the only reason, for as much as we've been really good at the Emirates, we can never keep a clean sheet there. I don't know why. And it's just actually very frustrating. I feel it will be a making of our own mistakes, though. Like, I don't think that I'm going to see something that I haven't seen before. And I think it'll be some kind of a stupid mistake. But I really think that we see a blitz in this first match. And I do see a 2-goal margin. I think I just see a 3-1 instance for me. I think everybody would love to take that. And it speaks to the confidence to which Arsenal can have, that I think that we're just going in to this semi-final, by the way, a stage that we haven't been in for years. 2009 was the last time we're here. So the only thing I'll end on is, guys, let's enjoy it. I think we're very confident. We're excited to see how the first leg's going to go. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see it. It's literally the day of my PhD defense. So
good luck, George. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, good sir. So I will hopefully be coming back to watch these with you guys after a very big victory. But we hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, if you guys wanted to check out our Patreon, in which you can apply for a 7-day free trial, that we went through all of the game footage with PSG, both against Villa, as well as our previous game in October. Probably a really good chance to kind of check that out, along with some of our other initiatives. What other initiatives can they find, Mr. Wohan, if they are to sign up for a 7-day free trial?
Just so much out there. You've got ad-free main pods, you've got scouted, you've got youth pods, you've got data pods, you've got rewatches. Rewatch, obviously, that we've just done. There's a new show that Alex is doing with James as well, James B from AFTV. There's so much stuff that you get yourself. And you
look at that, guys. He's been trained and he is a podcast pro already. Well, mate, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Always a
absolutely. Pleasure. And guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. Again, there's a link down in the description if you want to, and you can find all of our tags on X as well in the description down below. Thank you guys so much, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.